I'll be talking about services are one of the biggest industries where we talk about privacy and data protection. And today I'm going to talk about disabuse the very notion of what services are. Okay, that's really the topic. Okay, thank you. All right. To quote Kenya Hara, to understand something is not to be able to define it or describe it. Instead, taking something that we think we know and making it unknown thrills us afresh with the reality and deepening our understanding of it. Same goes with services. If we strip away the paraphernalia and the language, we don't understand them anymore. That was Charlie Chaplin, by the way. It's axiomatic for the eyes to only see what the mind prepares to see. So the hunter sees the rabbit, the bird watcher the bird, and too many tourists only see motels and gas stations. Through the eyes of human-centered design, I would see boarding processes, but I also see ground services without which the airline could never take off. There's a lot of asphalt in the world, but for the pilots flying this plane, that particular stretch is all that matters. And that's why airlines pay a lot of money for a time slot and a runway, because that's fundamentally, the airport meets, rubber meets the road, that's what makes it a service. Airlines promise on-time performance, but they also promise on-time affordance. This plane moves at 500 miles an hour, over 5,000 miles, carrying 300 passengers. It's almost like when you see the arc on airline magazines, it's like a tube flying through the sky. The design of this performance and affordances is in harmony with the artifacts and events they carry. This Super Hercules flying over Mount Fuji over here transports resources to very hostile environments. Luckily in Japan, it has permission to land, so diplomatic relations is part of the design. This F-15 flew over Chicago, throwing an invisible blanket of security, because after 9/11, we weren't sure there was another attack. Publicly funded taxpayer service, available and non-excludable. So that's the pure public good everybody enjoys, including the billionaires who want to cut the expenses. Some services challenge popular conceptions. Here you have two different services. Who is the user here? Who is the customer? If the user happy or the customer is unhappy, can they cancel the service? Can they get a refund? So this is a challenge with law enforcement and public judicial systems. Similarly, do meetings cause rooms, or do rooms cause meetings? So demand meets supply. So a lot of services fundamentally has this problem, the propensity meets audacity. You could say services are built environments acting on the physical world that address human needs, environments conducive for demand meeting supply. The simplest of services are the hardest to design. Now, the beauty of the ballot is that it converts opinions into votes, counting towards state totals that priestly transfer power or lurch an entire nation towards an exit. Of course, services are guilt environments acting on the spiritual world to address human needs, environments conducive to the man meeting the suppliant. Joking apart, Sunday services help people gather goodwill and trust that goes towards some of the neediest people. It's almost like God fund me. Every living soul eventually has to eat. This vault holds 14 million seed samples to protect biodiversity. It's a service for entire humanity. It's like a deep story. It's like a drop box for seed samples. Irony, of course, is that global warming caused the ice to melt and water seep into the vault. So irony defeats design. Closer to civilization, we have power plants and grids that share entire neighborhoods, towns, and countries. And this is a service we sort of take for granted. But this is also service design that we normally do not see. Power grids, power plants, and of course, shelves and rows of shelves. These are like content delivery networks. You reach for something in your shelf, it's not there, you reach your hand a little further through the neighborhood, into the walls, and there it is. It's almost like the entire neighborhood has their own private shelf in public space. And of course, the waste removal are the opposite. They create empty space because there's not enough emptiness in our lives. So all the clutter that we have to make room for something that's more important. Without almost seen as like Dropbox and recycle bins. ATMs are safes with loaded banknotes for your convenience across thousands of streets. And the only reason they don't charge you for something this expensive to maintain is because everybody else also uses it. And this is for the emptiness sometimes you feel in your wallet. A technician will carefully wrap antenna coils around this little cutie, subject to intense magnetic fields that produce subatomic vibrations in tissues. It's a frightful experience. So in services, we should see experience as a means to an end, and outcomes is what we really get. Outcomes are what you pay for, experience is what you pay with. Nobody's going to walk up to this beautiful truck, have the most beautiful experiences, convenient pay, no waiting lines, and walk away with an empty cup. The coffee in the cup is what matters, and making it simpler and easier to use makes you want to come back for more. Then you have services such as these. Thousands of miles, millions in fact, across the United States, where a letter or a parcel can reach from one place to another for the same flat fee. Where employees have full wages, no gig economy, and this is where you have very large service. So when I saw this event, I saw this picture at the Guggenheim, I was fascinated. When we think of design, we think of it this way, right? We think of design of things and buildings, an exploded diagram. But when it comes to services, services fail because of lack of imagination. So maybe my question or my thesis that he talks about is to be able to show that every service, no matter what kind that ever was or ever will be, has exactly 32 parts in a supersymmetry. And that's really the idea of seeing design of services in ways you've never seen before. Wow. Oh, shit.